Robert woke up early that morning, feeling a little tired but ready for the day ahead. He was a busy man, working as an important executive at a company that managed many local community centers. His job was to visit these places to check how things were going and to help solve problems, if there were any. Today, he planned to visit one of the centers near his home. It was a small center, but very important to the people who lived nearby. Robert believed in doing his work well, even if it meant dealing with small problems and sometimes difficult people. He got dressed in simple clothes, jeans, and a shirt. He did not want to wear his usual business suit because this visit was meant to be casual and not too formal. Robert wanted to see how the center worked in normal daily life. He packed some papers and a notebook into his bag. Then he left his house and drove to the community center. The sun was shining and the air was cool and fresh. Robert liked this time of day when the world seemed calm and peaceful. When he arrived at the community center, he noticed a small line of people waiting outside. Some were there for classes, others to meet friends, and some for different activities. Robert smiled at the happy faces and the children playing nearby. The center was a place full of life and energy. But at the entrance stood a woman named Karen. She was working as a security guard that day. Karen was known for being strict and sometimes difficult with visitors. She took her job seriously, but sometimes her way of talking was a little harsh. As Robert approached, Karen looked at him carefully. "ID, please," she said quickly, almost without greeting him. Robert reached into his pocket and pulled out his wallet. He took out his ID card and showed it to her calmly. Karen looked at the card, then back at Robert's face, clearly not satisfied. "Why are you here?" she asked sharply. Robert was surprised by the tone, but answered politely, "I'm here to check on the center and see how everything is going." He hoped this would be enough for her to let him in. Karen narrowed her eyes and asked again, "Who do you work for?" Her voice was not friendly. It felt like she did not believe him. Robert felt a little uncomfortable but did not want to argue. He said softly, "I work for the company that manages this center." Karen still did not relax. She asked for his ID again and looked at it as if searching for something wrong. Some people waiting in line noticed the tension. They whispered quietly to each other, watching the scene unfold. Robert wanted to say more, but thought it was better to stay calm. He did not want to cause any trouble or make Karen angry. He thought maybe she was having a bad day. So, he waited patiently while Karen continued to check his ID and ask questions. It felt like the moment was stretching longer and longer. Karen asked Robert many questions that seemed unnecessary. She wanted to know why he was not wearing a suit and why he did not have a letter or an official paper. Robert explained that this was a casual visit and he did not need special permission, but Karen did not seem to believe him. She kept looking suspicious and making him wait. Other people in the line started to get annoyed too. Some of them wanted to enter the center, but were stuck behind this long check. One woman sighed loudly and said, "She is always like this, so strict and rude." A young man nodded and said, "It feels like she does not trust anyone." Robert could see that Karen was causing trouble not only for him but also for others. He felt sorry for the people who just wanted to get inside. But Robert was still patient. He knew it was important to stay calm and not lose his temper. He thought about what he would do next, but decided to wait until the visit was over. As the minutes passed, Robert noticed Karen talking on her phone quietly. Maybe she was asking someone for advice. Finally, after what felt like a long time, she stepped aside and said, "Okay, you can go in now." Robert thanked her politely and entered the building. Inside, the center was warm and busy. People were chatting, children were laughing, and the air smelled like fresh coffee from the small cafe. Robert felt more relaxed now. But he could not forget the way Karen had treated him at the door. He wondered how many visitors she treated this way every day. Robert spent the morning walking through the center. He talked to the staff, saw the rooms, and listened to the stories of the people who used the center. He took notes and smiled often. He liked this work because it helped improve the lives of many people. But in the back of his mind, he kept thinking about Karen's rude behavior. After his visit, Robert decided to do something about it. He knew he had to handle the situation carefully. He did not want to embarrass anyone, but he wanted to make sure that people at the center were treated with respect. He hoped Karen would learn a lesson. Not in a harsh way, but in a way that helped her understand how important kindness is. Robert left the center with a quiet plan. He would call the manager the next day and talk about what happened. He wanted to help make the place better for everyone. And he wanted Karen to know that judging people by their clothes or quick looks was wrong. That day, Robert realized something very important. Sometimes people in small jobs like Karen's face pressure or have hard times that others do not see. But being in charge also means helping those people grow, not just telling them what to do. Robert felt ready to make a change as he drove. Away from the community center, the sun was higher in the sky now. Robert smiled to himself. He knew the day was just beginning, and so was his real work to bring kindness and respect to his community. Would you like me to continue with part 2? Robert woke up the next morning thinking about what had happened at the community center. He could not stop remembering Karen's cold and rude behavior at the entrance. It bothered him more than he expected. He felt sad because the community center was a place meant to help people feel welcome and safe. Yet, the way Karen treated visitors did not match that idea. He knew that Karen was only one person, but her attitude affected many people every day. Robert thought about the families, children, and elderly who came to the center. They deserved to be treated with kindness and respect, no matter who they were or what they looked like. Robert decided he needed to find out more about Karen and her work. He made a call to the community center's main office. The voice on the other side was warm and polite. Robert explained calmly that he had visited the center the day before and faced some difficulties at the entrance with a staff member. He did not want to complain, but wanted to help improve things. The manager listened carefully and thanked Robert for sharing his experience. She said she knew Karen well, and that sometimes she could be strict. The manager admitted that there had been some complaints before about Karen's behavior. She promised to look into the matter and take action if needed. Robert felt relieved to hear that. He asked the manager if it would be possible for him to visit again soon, maybe with the manager present so they could discuss ways to make the entrance friendlier. The manager agreed and suggested a meeting later that week. Robert thought that was a good idea. While waiting for the meeting, Robert thought more about how important first impressions were. The moment a visitor arrives at a place, the way they are treated can shape their whole experience. If Karen was rude and unfriendly, it might discourage people from coming back. That would be bad for the community center and the people who needed it most. Robert also thought about Karen as a person. He wondered what made her so strict. Maybe she was under pressure from her job, or maybe she had her own problems outside work. Sometimes people act harsh because they feel stressed or unhappy inside. Robert believed that understanding this was important before judging someone too quickly. That week, Robert prepared carefully for the meeting. He gathered some notes about how other community centers welcomed visitors. He also read articles about good customer service and how it helped places grow stronger. Robert wanted to share these ideas in a kind and helpful way. On the day of the meeting, Robert dressed in a neat suit. He wanted to look professional and serious, but also friendly. When he arrived, the manager greeted him warmly and introduced him to a few other staff members. They sat together in a small conference room with windows that let in sunlight. Robert started by thanking everyone for their hard work. He said the community center was a special place, and it showed in the smiles of the people who came. Then he gently shared what he had experienced at the entrance. He did not blame anyone, but explained how the way Karen treated visitors could make people feel unwelcome. The manager nodded and said she understood. She mentioned again that Karen had received some warnings before, but hoped she could change. Robert suggested that maybe Karen and the other staff could attend training sessions on customer service. He believed that learning new skills and understanding visitors better would help. The staff agreed that this was a good idea. They also said they wanted to create a friendly atmosphere where everyone felt safe and happy. Robert felt hopeful. It seemed like the team was willing to work together to improve things. Later that day, Robert walked around the center again. He noticed the happy voices, the children playing, and the community coming together. But he kept thinking about the entrance and how much better it could be with a smile and kindness. Robert decided to return the next day. time in his formal suit to meet Karen directly. He wanted to introduce himself properly and help her understand who he was. But he planned to do it gently, not to embarrass her, but to teach a lesson in respect and kindness. That evening, Robert prepared for his visit. He practiced what he would say and how he would act. He wanted to stay calm and patient, even if Karen reacted badly. Robert knew that changing someone's behavior took time, and he was ready to be understanding. The next morning, Robert felt a mix of nerves and determination. He hoped Karen would listen and learn. He also hoped the visit would make the community center a better place for everyone. When he arrived at the center, Robert saw Karen again standing at the door. This time, she looked tired but alert. As he approached, Karen's eyes narrowed, and she immediately said, "ID, please." Robert smiled politely and took out his ID card. But instead of just showing it, he said calmly, "I am Robert, the boss of this community center. I want to talk with you about yesterday." Karen's face changed instantly. She looked shocked and a little embarrassed. She did not expect the man she had treated so coldly to be the one in charge. For a moment, she did not say anything. Robert continued gently, "I know your job is hard and you want to keep this place safe. But it is also important to treat visitors with respect and kindness that makes everyone feel welcome." Karen looked down and said softly, "I'm sorry. I did not know who you were. I didn't mean to be rude." Robert nodded and said, "I understand, but now you do. And I want to help you do your job better. We will have training soon, and I hope you will join us." Karen smiled faintly and said, "Thank you. I want to learn." Robert felt happy that the conversation went well. He knew this was only the first step, but it was important. Sometimes, people just need to be seen and heard to change. After the talk, Robert walked inside the center. He looked around and felt proud of the work they were doing. He also felt hopeful that with small changes, the community center could become an even better place for everyone. That day, Robert understood something more about leadership. It was not just about giving orders, but about helping others grow. Even in difficult situations, patience and kindness could make a difference. As Robert left the center, he smiled to himself. He knew the journey to change was just beginning, but he was ready to lead with respect and care. Would you like me to continue with part 3? Robert's visit to the community center had stirred many thoughts in his mind. After speaking with Karen, he felt hopeful, but he also knew that change would take time. He wanted to make sure that the center was not only running well, but that every person there was treated with respect and kindness. After the conversation with Karen at the entrance, Robert decided to take a more active role. He called the center's main office once again. This time he spoke with the human resources manager, Ms. Davis. She was a kind woman who cared deeply about the staff and the people at the center. Robert explained the whole situation in detail. He told her about his first visit, Karen's behavior at the entrance, the talk he had with her afterward. Ms. Davis listened carefully and thanked Robert for being so patient and thoughtful. She told him that Karen had been with the community center for many years. While she was good at her job in some ways, she did have a reputation for being strict and sometimes difficult with visitors. Ms. Davis shared that they had received complaints from people who felt uncomfortable because of Karen's attitude. Robert asked Ms. Davis if they had ever offered Karen any training or support to improve her skills in dealing with visitors. Ms. Davis sighed and said that while they had talked to Karen about her behavior, they had not arranged any formal training. Yet, she agreed that it was important and promised to set something up soon. Robert felt encouraged. He suggested that the center bring in customer service experts to teach Karen and other staff how to be friendlier and more welcoming. Ms. Davis thought it was a great idea. She said she would start working on the plans immediately. Robert then arranged to visit the center again the next week. This time he would meet with Ms. Davis, Karen, and other staff members to discuss ways to improve the center's atmosphere. Robert wanted to make sure everyone felt comfortable and respected, especially the visitors. As the days passed, Robert prepared for the meeting. He collected examples of how other centers welcomed people warmly. He also read stories about how kindness and good service helped communities grow stronger. Robert believed that a small change in attitude could have a big impact. The day of the meeting arrived. Robert entered the community center dressed neatly in his business suit. Ms. Davis greeted him with a warm smile. A few other staff members were also present. Karen arrived a few minutes later. She looked nervous but ready to listen. Robert began the meeting by thanking everyone for their hard work. He spoke about the importance of the community center to the people it served. Then he gently explained how first impressions mattered, and how visitors often judged the center by how they were treated when they arrived. Karen listened quietly. Robert did not want to embarrass her, so he spoke with kindness. He explained that while keeping the center safe was important, it was just as important to be polite and welcoming. Ms. Davis spoke next. She shared that the center wanted to support the staff with training and help create a positive environment for all. Karen nodded, showing that she understood. Robert then introduced a plan for customer service training. He explained that the center would bring experts to teach simple ways to greet visitors, listen carefully, and show respect. He said this would help staff feel more confident and visitors feel happier. The staff agreed with the plan. Karen even smiled a little, showing she was willing to try. Robert felt hopeful that the center was moving in the right direction. After the meeting, Robert spent some time walking around the center. He talked with staff and visitors, saw the joy on children's faces and the gratitude of parents. Center was alive with activity, but Robert knew that the real strength was in how people treated each other. Robert also thought about Karen. He knew change was not easy. Sometimes people hold on to old habits because they are afraid of new ways. But Robert believed in patience and support. He planned to check in regularly and offer help. That afternoon, Robert went back to his office and wrote a report about the visit. He shared his ideas and observations with other leaders in his company. He asked them to support the customer service training and to keep an eye on how things improved. Robert's goal was simple: to make the community center a place where everyone felt welcome and respected. He wanted the center to be a second home for people, a safe and happy place. A few days later, Robert received a message from Ms. Davis. She told him that the training was scheduled for the following week. Karen had agreed to attend and was all ready, showing signs of change. She had apologized to some visitors and was trying to be more polite. Robert smiled when he read the message. He knew the road ahead was long, but every step counted. He also thought about the power of kindness. A small act, like a smile or a gentle word, could change someone's day. And when many people did this, the whole community could feel better. Robert decided to visit the center again after the training. He wanted to see for himself how the changes were working. For now, he felt good about the progress. That evening, Robert sat quietly in his living room, reflected on the lessons he had learned. Leadership was not just about making decisions. It was about understanding people, helping them grow, creating a place where everyone mattered. Robert felt ready for the next visit. He hoped that Karen and the other staff would continue to improve. And he hoped that every visitor who came to the community center would feel the warmth and respect they deserved, with a calm heart. Robert closed his eyes and prepared for a good night's rest. Tomorrow was a new day, full of opportunities to make a difference. Would you like me to continue with part 4? Robert returned to the community center on a bright morning, his heart full of hope and determination. He wore his best suit and carried a folder with notes and plans. Today was important. He would meet Karen again, but this time he wanted to speak with her clearly and kindly about how things should change at the center's entrance. Robert knew that his words could make a difference not just for Karen, but for everyone who came to the center. As he walked toward the entrance, he saw Karen standing by the door. She looked tired, but her eyes were alert. When she saw Robert, she quickly said, "May I see your ID, please?" Her tone was polite, but still a little tense. Robert smiled gently and reached into his pocket. But before showing his ID, he said softly, "Karen, I want to talk with you for a moment." Karen looked surprised. "Of course," she said, stepping aside to let him pass. Robert entered the building and motioned for Karen to follow him to a quiet room nearby. The hallway was busy with people moving in and out, but inside the small room was calm and peaceful. Robert sat down and looked kindly at Karen. "I want to start by saying thank you," he said. "Thank you for your hard work and dedication. I know your job is not easy. You have a big responsibility to keep this place safe." Karen's face softened as she listened, but Robert continued. There is another important part of your job. It is to make visitors feel welcome and respected. When someone comes here, they are often looking for help, comfort, or friendship. The way you greet them can change their whole experience. Karen nodded slowly. I understand, she said. Quietly, I didn't realize how much my attitude affected people. I thought I was just doing my job. Robert smiled. You are doing your job, but we can always do better. That is why we arranged training for you and the other staff. It will help you learn new ways to greet visitors and handle difficult situations. Karen looked a little nervous. I want to do better, she said. But sometimes I get stressed, and it is hard to stay calm. Robert nodded. That is normal. Everyone feels stressed sometimes. The training will give you tools to handle stress. And stay kind. It will support you every step of the way. Karen smiled faintly. Thank you for giving me a chance. Robert reached into his folder and handed Karen a schedule for the training sessions. He explained what they would cover, how to listen carefully, speak politely, and help visitors. Feel safe. Karen looked at the schedule and said she was ready to begin. After their talk, Robert walked with Karen back to the entrance. He watched as she greeted a young mother and her child. This time, Karen smiled and said hello warmly. The mother smiled back and looked relieved. Robert felt proud. Later that day, Robert met with the Human Resources Manager, Ms. Davis, to discuss the progress. Ms. Davis told him that Karen was already trying to change. She was more patient and kind with visitors. Other staff members were also excited about the training. Robert knew that change did not happen overnight, but he also knew that small steps could lead to big improvements. Karen was learning, and the center was becoming a more welcoming place. A few days later, the customer service training began. Experts came to the center and taught the staff simple and effective ways to greet visitors. They practiced smiling, listening, and speaking with respect. Karen paid close attention and asked many questions. She wanted to improve. The training also helped Karen understand why kindness mattered so much. She realized that her attitude could make visitors feel either welcome or unwanted. Karen began to see her role differently, not just as a guard, but as a helper and a friend. Robert visited the training sessions sometimes, offering encouragement and support. He told Karen and the staff that their work was important and appreciated. He reminded them that everyone had the power to make the center a better place. After the training, Robert continued to visit the community center regularly. He watched how Karen greeted visitors with a smile. He saw how the staff worked together to create a friendly atmosphere. The center was full of warmth and kindness. One afternoon, Robert heard from a visitor who thanked Karen personally for her kindness. The visitor said she felt safe and welcome every time she came to the center. Robert smiled, knowing that their efforts were paying off. Robert also noticed that Karen seemed happier. She laughed more and seemed proud of her work. Robert believed that when people feel respected and supported, they do their best. The story of Karen's change spread quietly in the community. Other centers heard about the training and wanted to do the same. Robert felt grateful to be part of this positive change. At the end of the day, Robert reflected on what he had learned. Leadership was not about power or control. It was about listening, understanding, and helping others grow. Robert felt lucky to work with people like Karen who were willing to change as the sun set. Robert left the community center with a heart full of hope. He knew that every person mattered, and every small act of kindness could change the world a little bit. Would you like me to continue with part 5? Robert felt a deep sense of fulfillment as he prepared for what he knew would be the last visit in this part of his journey with the community center. Over the weeks, he had seen many changes, not only in the center's atmosphere, but also in the people who worked there. Karen's transformation was especially important to him. What started as a difficult and tense moment at the entrance had become a story of growth, understanding, and respect. On this day, Robert arrived earlier than usual. The morning sun cast warm light across the center's courtyard, where children laughed and played. Staff members greeted visitors with smiles, and the air was filled with a feeling of calm and welcome. Robert noticed Karen near the entrance, standing tall and confident. She looked at ease, and when she saw Robert, she gave a friendly wave. Robert walked over and greeted her warmly. "Good morning, Karen. How are you today?" Karen smiled brightly. "Good morning, Robert. I'm doing well, thank you. Feel much better now." Robert was happy to hear this. "It's wonderful to hear. You've done a great job. The visitors have noticed, and so have I." Karen's smile grew wider. "It wasn't easy at first. Changing how I worked took time, but the training helped a lot, and I learned how important kindness really is." Robert nodded. "It's not just about the job, it's about people. When we treat others well, we build trust and community." As they talked, a young woman approached the entrance, holding her small child's hand. Karen greeted her warmly, asking if she needed any help. The woman smiled gratefully and said, "Thank you. This is a wonderful place. Always feel safe and welcome here." Robert watched this exchange and felt proud. He knew that this kindness made a real difference in people's lives later. Robert met with Ms. Davis and other staff members to review the progress at the center. They shared stories about how visitors were happier and how the staff worked better together. Everyone agreed that the customer service training had been a great success. Ms. Davis told Robert that Karen had even volunteered to help teach new staff about how to greet visitors kindly. Robert smiled, seeing how Karen had grown into a leader. Robert took notes and made plans to continue supporting the community center. He wanted to ensure that the kindness and respect they had worked hard to build would last for many years. After the meeting, Robert took a walk through the center's garden. The flowers were blooming, and the sound of birds filled the air. He thought about how this peaceful place reflected the changes inside. Robert remembered the first day, when Karen had demanded his ID and treated him coldly. He smiled at how far they had come. The story was not just about one person or one center. It was about the power of patience, understanding, and giving people a chance to change. Robert knew that leadership was a journey. It was about helping others, listening with an open heart, and believing in the best in people. Before leaving, Robert stopped by the entrance once more. Karen was there, greeting visitors with a warm smile. She looked happy and proud. Robert felt thankful for the chance to help make a positive change. As he walked away from the community center, Robert thought about the lessons he had learned. He knew that respect and kindness were the foundation of a strong community. He believed that with care and patience, anyone could grow and improve. Robert looked forward to the future, hopeful and confident that the community center would continue to be a place of welcome, safety, and friendship for all. Would you like me to help you with anything else?